Welcome back to another episode of Business Journey Law. Today I'm joined with Philip Gomez, one of the leaders behind Entry Shield Security. Philip and Matt work with schools, government facilities, community organizations, navigating one of the hardest decisions administrators have to face, especially nowadays: how to secure entry points in environments where every second matters. Philip, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Happy to be a part of this.
It's interesting, and we kind of spoke about this before recording, but especially when you were growing up, especially when Matt Norcross was growing up, the co-owner of Entry Shield as well, this subject was never spoke about. No one really had an inclination to actually speak about the subject, to even have just a clear thought about it, because back then, all of the violence that's especially nowadays with the early 2000s, with the 2010s, that's what prompted these such subjects to come up and such implementation to be brought up, especially in schools. Because going on my perspective, especially in the late 2000s, the early 2010s, that's when stuff slowly started to integrate within schools and other facilities as well. But nowadays, it's everywhere, right? So, with
Right.
that point, what was the core vision and what's your mission with Entry Shield?
Yeah, well, just going back to what you said generally, it's interesting that there are things that have always gone on that were just never talked about, right, in our world. Everybody did have, I don't know if this is PC or the right thing to say, but everybody did have that creepy uncle. You know what I mean? And some of those
Yeah.
things weren't just talked about. But what we're addressing now is an altogether different sort of issue that is emerged based on, the timeframes that you listed out in the early 20,000s, 2010s, et cetera, where, um, we have shifted as a culture to, from when I was a young guy, to go out and ride your bike from sun up to sundown and nobody worries about you, to now we're worried about our kids, our family, everywhere we drop them off, and especially in large, venues or municipalities, schools, et cetera, where people are gathering. It just, it speaks to the general issue of our current day and culture, which is, the mental health issue that we're fighting and dealing with. But for us at Entry Shield, it's a problem that we've really taken seriously. We've really wanted to try to help, parents have peace of mind when they drop their kids off at school, to know that, look, we live in a dangerous world, but at least this organization, this entity, or whatever, is taking the right steps in a layered fashion to help mitigate risk in a responsible way. It's There's very good data on, the fact that when students feel safe, they perform better. When your staff feels safe, they perform better. And it's kind of crazy that we have to talk about it in those terms, and in that context, especially with schools. But man, I mean, this is the kind of thing that's expanded beyond the school vertical, and it's just everywhere.
Right.
And people have a real need now in today's culture to feel safe and secure, and that's what we're all about, is trying to provide that peace of mind, not only for, the students and the parents, but also for staff in the school vertical, but other verticals like healthcare and municipalities as well. Everybody needs to be safe, but more than that, everybody wants to feel safe. And that's really what we're after here at Entry Shield, is just providing a layer of safety and security that's meaningful, that's tangible, and that people can realize and see as they're walking into your buildings. So,
It's beautiful. It just has a added relief lifted off their shoulders.
mhm.
You want them to feel safe, and as you mentioned with the data, whether we like it or not, it does help them perform better.
Yeah,
Because in the back of their mind, especially with everything that's been going on these past couple of decades, there's a lot of people that have that in the back of their mind, and that in turn will let them produce the same amount of output as if they didn't have that in their thoughts. That's the
yeah,
biggest.
that's exactly right, man. I mean, safety is a it's no longer a foregone conclusion in terms of you just being safe wherever you go. It's something that you literally have to plan for now, at every level. And the difficulty with, you know, what we're dealing with in our culture is that there's no one size fits all solution to safety, right? It is very, very much a layered approach, and to be honest, we're one of the layers, and I think we're a really effective layer, but we're just one of the layers.
There's other businesses that offer the same products, services that you offer with Entry Shield. Was there something specific that you saw was lacking within that type of market, within other companies that offer the same products and services that you do currently with Entry Shield?
Yeah. So what is distinctive about us is, and that we're really proud of, is that we hold a patent for mobile notifications to for any walkthrough metal detection system, right? And so the biggest need that we're solving for is a lack of capacity for staff in the verticals that I mentioned, to have someone literally seated at a front door all day long, screening people. It's really expensive to hire staff. The equipment's expensive to buy, and so most people, up until Entry Shield came on the scene as a solution, um, did not have, or were not experienced, like, the full use case fidelity of their purchase. I mean, these are big cap X spends buying weapons detection systems, et cetera. But most of the time, those the unspoken part about that is that if you buy them, you've got to staff them. Well, staffing's expensive, and so our patent allows for, um, us to be your remote or virtual SRO, or virtual security guard, or resource officer, with instant notifications to your mobile device and your security team, which differentiates us from just a group of guys that are out there selling weapons detection systems, right? And so we stand alone in that regard as a solution that not only allows for personnel to man them, but also as a gap filler for the rest of the day, increasing the fidelity of use of your machine so that you're running them all day long, screening all day long, which is really important. And if you can imagine, in the especially in the ed vertical, you know, um, students, if you've ever been to a high school, and you're pretty young, you probably what wasn't that long ago since you were in high school, Kevin. Um, but man, a high school and middle school, I mean, the front entryway of a school building is a revolving door throughout the day. I've got a 15-year-old son and a 13-year-old daughter, and there's multiple trips to the school building a week because my son forgot his football cleats, or my daughter needs some um, tape for her ankle for basketball practice or whatever. And so everybody coming in the building, right, and not being screened is a danger to the rest of the people that are in there. And so we solve for that uniquely with our application, which is a layered application and really is device agnostic. And we're proud to build it that way.
Given the scope you have with physical implementation and also the mobile implementation that you have for staff and faculty, what's
Mhm.
the one design or operational standard that you refuse to absolutely have on, whether that's building, installing the system, even if it costs added cost or even the complexity as well?
What do you mean? What do we refuse to negate, or what?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really interesting. We've learned a lesson in the past year that, um, the way we outfit our installs, is with the idea that we don't want anybody circumventing the system, right? We need everybody passing through the system to be screened, no matter where they're at, especially if they're unmanned or unstaffed, right? And reliant on our patented application for instant and real time notification.
Mhm.
Um, but the lesson was, you know, we've got to control traffic through our entryways, and we do that in a unique way at Entry Shield. And frankly, stanchions, you know what stanchions are, airport thing, the ribbon deals that you walk through, and they flow traffic through those for security checkpoints, et cetera. Stanchions are not a good solution for this type of environment, especially when personnel capacity is an issue. We want everybody to go through, and that's something that we catered to the needs of a specific customer, um, and that was something that we left off the install based on request. But it is an absolute necessity if you're going to be running these machines and don't have someone sitting at it because you don't want anyone bypassing the system.
So it's interesting that you mentioned the bypassing because every school there's always multiple entries, multiple exits. With that in mind, how do you make sure everything is run smoothly? Obviously, you have to direct it with your workflows into one simple mobile application. Just how are you accurately tracking who comes in, who goes, what's actually detected?
Yeah, so there's a lot to that, really, Kevin. We do track in and out data. We really cater to the needs of the customer in terms of what their target for contraband is, whether that's weapons of mass casualty, AR, AKs, pipe bombs, pressure cooker bombs, etc., or if they're looking to get subcompact pistols or even knives, right? And so we leave a lot of what the requirements are based on our discovery to the customer to help us define, and that's the flexibility of what we provide in the systems that we sell, but also in how we notify and track people as they're coming and going. So there are specific targets in a lot of the equipment that we sell that you can set a range for, which makes it really nice. But primary entryways is where we always want to see a weapons detection system. There is a lot of concern and growing need to help identify you know, um, any threshold breaches at a secondary access point. If a doorway into the building is opened, we need to know that immediately. And that happens in a bunch of different ways. Someone props the door open from the inside. Maybe a teacher forgets to close the door when they came in, or they're walking in the building and the HVAC system creates so much pressure that the door doesn't shut all the way, and that leaves you vulnerable. So not only we do the weapons detection at primary entryways, but we're also screening secondary access points to, again, provide that instant notification of a breach. And we do it differently than most of the people out there doing that with access controls do it.
Very interesting. Obviously, you're working with schools and facilities that are under massive pressure, parents demanding action, boards allocating emergency budgets, even law enforcement pushing for hardening such measures. But
Mhm.
obviously, not every solution that I just listed actually makes students safer, right? The biggest trend we're seeing nowadays is, as you mentioned, with all these different types of weapons of mass destruction, especially coming into the schools. With that in mind, what's one trend in the school safety market right now that you think is either overhyped or just generally underestimated?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question for me to answer because I really don't believe in, denigrating other solutions out there or other ways to solve problems out there, because I think there's a lot of really good products out there. But I do see some deficit in a lot of what's out there in terms of, the AI capability for brandishing weapons, right? So that there's systems out there that, will notify a team or a person or whatever when a weapon's brandished, and I think that that's fantastic if you're outside in a parking lot or whatever. But if you're carrying a concealed weapon into the building and nobody knows you have it, and we're waiting to get a trigger or notification from a system that detects it once it's pulled out. Well, by then, if it's a weapon of mass casualty, you can do a lot of damage in a very short amount of time if a first respond waiting on first responders to get there. And
Mhm.
so I think it's great technology, but I don't think you can bypass the need for actual screening in the way that we do it to help again mitigate that need and the the complexities that go with it. So I think that they could work really well in tandem. But I think if a facility is strictly relying on AI for brandishing weapons and notification based on that, or contraband and notification based on that, I think that they're a little behind the eight ball in terms of providing true and effective screening for weapons.
You make an excellent point, and I spoke to a video surveillance company that's based out in New York who
Mhm.
actually has AI monitoring with human intervention. What do I
Yeah,
mean by that? It's hard for the AI, just give me an example, to detect if kids, let's say hypothetically, they're outside on a basketball court, they're running somewhere. How is AI going to detect if they're running from an actual event or just playing and running,
yeah.
right? There has to be some type of human interaction or man made knowledge base that's in there to actually detect that. And obviously, as you mentioned, they can't overly rely on AI in such scenarios because you need to have those screenings. You need to have those interventions as well. Because while AI could help in certain aspects, it won't be 100% accurate. Nothing will be 100% accurate, even just in general in life, right? That's
Yeah,
a big
and and we deal with that too, in our detection methods as well, and especially with some of the devices that we use. But the downside, look, AI, there's no question about it, is going to be smarter and smarter and smarter. I mean, we know that. Um, it's the trend, it's the wave, it's all the good things that we can expect in a useful tool, along with the negative, that goes along with it. But there's a case, I believe it was in the Northeast, if I'm not mistaken, where a kid, you know, ate a bag of Doritos, crumpled up the bag, and shoved it in his pocket. And the AI, surveillance that they had there at that location thought the kid was stuffing a gun in his pants. So before he knows it, he's sitting on the bleacher as an innocent kid who just got done eating his Cool Ranch Doritos, and he was swarmed by police officers because AI thought, with human intervention, thought he shoved a gun in his pocket.
wow.
Mhm.
That's insane.
Mhm.
I've spoke to a lot of operators in business where obviously you're managing the sales, the installation, the client relationship, and even the product development all at once. Coming
Mhm.
from your business perspective, what's one area that you're looking to fix, improving going into 2026? Whether that's the sourcing side, the execution side, the deliverables, and the workflows.
Yeah, my focus, for this year and then we talked about this in our little pre-conversation, Kevin, is really to work on the business and not in it. I've scaled and grown in capacity to help, uh, distribute the load a little bit better with my team. And so my focus really is uh, to drive revenue through meaningful partnerships and integrations that sort of round out our offering, making it more of a um, um, scalable and enterprise type solution, bringing other meaningful solutions on board that not complement necessarily what we do, but enhance what we do in terms of our focus, which is primarily entry points to buildings and what's done after that.
While also making it affordable as well.
Yeah, well,
The biggest
absolutely.
that's the
Yeah.
biggest.
Mhm.
So, given your experience, you're advising school administrators, faculty members who are making decisions where downside is catastrophic. And obviously, given the budgets, there might be budget constraints,
Yep.
board scrutiny, and even community pressure. What's a
Mhm.
framework that you rely on to guide them towards the right solution within your products and services?
Well, I mean, obviously, the biggest framework and the biggest driver for us and what we try to articulate is the need, right? I mean, you said it on the front end of this, conversation. The need is there and we can't ignore it. And we're, I don't want to be really dog too dogmatic about this, but it's almost irresponsible if it's not being addressed in a meaningful way. And those are difficult decisions for organizations to make because they are costly, you know, um, endeavors. But um, I think if we're pinpointing, a really specific you know selling point and need or idea is that there is a need for this. And fortunately for us, we've been really good about helping direct, our buyers to, grants and other purchasing avenues that maybe they haven't considered or thought of. And we've been really creative about that and the help that we bring there.
It's always good to give that flexibility, like you
Mm.
mentioned with the grants, because again, going back to the budget constraints, they may not have the budgets allocated to having such implementation in place. But as you mentioned, this is a need that every school needs, especially
Mhm.
nowadays.
Mhm.
Safety and security is at the utmost forefront,
Yep.
especially going into this decade,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And unfortunately, I mean, it's a need that's not gonna go away. And really selling this sort of um, layer of security is, you've got to be mindful of, the culture and where we're at. No one wants somebody to, be opportunist because bad situations happen. Um, and unfortunately, a lot of people in our business, they're ambulance chasers, and reactive, based on the biggest headline that's out there. And, that's just not our MO, right? We want to sell to the need, which is, look, safety is got to be a priority. And I know it is. If an organization is engaging with us, they're obviously considering it as a top priority and they know the need. So we don't spend a whole lot of time talking about, you know, the next big issue or event. We spend a lot of time talking about how to mitigate that and the layer and of safety and security that we bring that provides peace of mind and meaningful deterrence to the community so that they know, look, we take what we do seriously, and we're not out here responding to the next big crisis. We believe in a real steady approach to our selling um, flow and rhythm, and that is let's just go help people feel safe.
As you should. And that's the most beautiful thing that you could do. It's actually helping people, helping the organizations, the schools, the government facilities, making them that feel at peace. That's the
Hmm.
biggest thing that you're trying to solve, and I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Before before we wrap up here, going on a personal and a professional development, what's something, whether it's a habit, a belief, or a practice that you have that you carry day to day within your life that has allowed you to exceed and get and where you are with entry shield security?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest, you know, passion or fuel for me is do everything with integrity. And I know that can sound a little bit cliche-ish, but it's really important for me that I be the same guy I am in front of my wife and kids that I am in front of everybody else. And keeping that as a baseline. I don't want my kids to ever walk into a situation and not recognize who their dad is being, right? And that's true for not just my uh, personal relationships and all that, but also in the process of growing a business. I think integrity, I think honesty, are the leaders in this world because if you don't operate from that perspective, you're going to leave yourself vulnerable to, you know, um, things that, you know, let me put it this way. I believe in being an honest sales guy. And I believe in selling to the need and not overselling customers. Um, and and I believe in order to do that, you can't abandon what your values or your morals are. So my day to day sort of posture is to be authentically me, in every situation that I find myself in. And sometimes that can get really difficult, especially if you're working and you're on the hook for a big sale and you want to do whatever you can to push it across the finish line. But having the integrity to say, look, we can't do that, and it may cost me the sale, is something I'd rather do than win, because I'd like to be able to sleep at night. And so, again, I know that's a little bit cliche-ish, but it is a real core value of mine, to be authentically me wherever I find myself, so that you know, like I said, my kids, they ever walk in a room, they don't, they're not. I want them to be able to recognize me being me everywhere we are.
And that's a very good mindset to have. For me personally, I always like to treat others how I wanna be treated,
Yeah,
right? And it's not how the world treats you, it's how you treat the world.
yeah,
Everybody has different lives, different backgrounds, different experiences, but you come in there being true, authentic, honest, transparent. That's the best you can do. But there's a lot of people, not saying in this type of market that you're in, but there's a lot of people that start businesses and companies where all they care about is just the dollar sign. They don't
yeah,
actually care about how is this truly going to affect other people's lives in a beneficial, helpful way. All I just care
yeah.
about is just how deep my pockets are going to get.
Man, and that's obviously, that's really well said, Kevin. My ambition in life has never been to own 4 Ferraris and a big house, right? I think for most people, that are, entrepreneurs, I know this, to my core. They start off, number 1, with a passion for proving themselves, which is obviously a passion of mine, but also to solve problems. And as long as we keep that goal in mind, I think it's really easy to stay grounded in the right position. If you're working to become a rich, look, everybody needs money. Money solves a lot of problems. But if that's your goal in life, I think it's inevitable that you're going to uh, not be successful. I think the biggest problem solvers that we see, nowadays in our culture, Elon Musk and the Bezos guy and all of that, they really started out with a need to solve a problem, and that passion that they have for that, and whatever vertical they happen to be attacking at the time, is not going away for them, and it keeps them engaged, and you reap the reward for doing it in a meaningful and you know um, good way. But I think, especially just given what I've read and know about Elon, his passion for innovation is not going away, and I think that's what fuels him, and frankly, that's what fuels me.
That's well said. That's beautiful. For anyone who's listening or watching this, what's the best place for them to reach out to either Entry Shield Security or to you as well?
Yeah, best way to get us is entryshield.com, and we're a startup, so we've been building this plane as we fly it, and our website is maturing, so that's soon to be released, the new version of the website, but entryshield.com will get you there. There's a contact us page there, info@entryshield.com, and that'll come straight to our team, and we're happy to engage with you, answer any questions, or even provide any level of consultation that you need.
Awesome, Philip. Thank you so much for having to come on to the show. I really do appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kevin. I appreciate it.